Welcome in, and we have more breaking news on Dolphins today. The unfortunate reality of Connor Williams' season being over continues to set in, out for the season. And I don't have to remind you how productive he's been this year. He has been a force in the middle of the Dolphins' offensive line, model of consistency, and really just an overall excellent player to anchor the Dolphins' offensive line. But unfortunately, Connor Williams suffers the torn ACL in the Monday night game against the Titans. So his season is done. He's out for the season, which is a huge loss, as you see on the graphic there. Top-graded center in 2023, according to Pro Football Focus. So what did the Dolphins decide to do? Obviously, it's going to be tough to replace Connor Williams, but some roster moves officially coming into the wire as we speak. Jonotthan Harrison, the newest member of the Miami Dolphins, has been signed. 6'4" center, 300 pounds, played his college football at Florida, and was signed today to the 53-man roster. He was also drafted by the Jets in 2019. Last played with the Jets, I beg your pardon, in 2019. So he'll have a chance, perhaps, to play against his former team right from the beginning. Dolphins weren't done there. They made a few more roster moves, including signing Matt Skura to the practice squad, again, to add more depth to that offensive line that has been so banged up this season. This is a crazy stat. 9 different offensive line starting combinations in the 13 games that the Dolphins have played. That is crazy to think of. Guys have been beat up all season long. It's been like musical chairs. But Matt Skura now on the practice squad, played at Duke, 6'3", 313-pound offensive lineman that could add some depth to the offensive line. And obviously, I don't want to say desperate times calls for desperate measures, but when things of this nature happen, you got to act quickly, you got to act swiftly, and that's exactly what the Dolphins the Dolphins front office did to add some depth to that offensive line. So let me know what you think of the signings. Do it right now in the comments. Grade those signings for me. Give it an A, B, C, D, or F if you like the signings that the Dolphins went through and made just moments ago to help add some depth to that offensive line. A, B, C, D, or F. I think this was a necessary move, as we can all agree. This Dolphins offensive line, unfortunately, it's just been bitten by the injury bug. And when you talk about the offensive line group as a whole, a lot of it is about who can be available. And there's so many different ways to evaluate offensive line play. It's not as simple as looking at stats like you see with a quarterback or a running back. Oh, he's got this QBR rating. There's so much more detailed that go into it, and that's why sites like Pro Football Focus are helpful in evaluating. Take a look at the tape. Combine that with past experience. All that factors in to the signings that are made. At the end of the day, I think you got to trust this Dolphins front office, because you look at this Dolphins offensive line depth chart, it was a perceived weakness of this team heading into 2023, and really the only big name on that list was Terron Armstead, but the rest of the guys have really stepped up and played their best this season. Austin Jackson's a guy that comes to mind. He's been so good that the Dolphins offered him a 3-year contract extension. They did not renew his deal heading into the season. He proved it with 12 excellent games and now has been extended. You think of a guy like Connor Williams, you feel terrible for him after he tore his ACL, especially on a contract year, but he's another guy that played a little bit better than what was expected of him. The same can be said for Isaiah Wynn and Rob Hunt before they were both injured respectively. And so all that said, you got to believe that the work that Butch Barry has done, the offensive line coach for the Miami Dolphins, needs to be praised, because he and his group of offensive linemen have been the definition of overachievers this season. So the hope being Jonotthan Harrison can step right in and adapt quickly to the offense, learn from the other guys that have built already a strong culture, and that goes not just for the offensive line, but that's team-wide, to welcome in these new signings so they can hit the ground running and start to be meaningful contributors to this Miami Dolphins team. And I have the utmost confidence in the Dolphins to do that. But you got to let me know what you think in the comments right now. How are you feeling about the offensive line and your confidence in the offensive line's ability to perform at a high level? Scale it for me 1 through 10. Now, that said, in a little bit, we're going to talk about some free agents that are still out there that perhaps the Dolphins could continue to pursue. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to PrizePicks, today's presenting sponsor, helping keep the lights on at Chat Sports and helping us make today's show possible. I love playing PrizePicks, and if you're new to the show, you're probably wondering, how do you play? Well, it's real simple. PrizePicks is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You simply pick more or less on a player's projected stat line, and that's where the fun begins. Tons of different options as far as the different picks to make, but in general, you're picking more or less on a player's projected stat line. It makes watching the Dolphins so much fun, but you know what? I'm going to get a step ahead and even make a prize pick for Thursday Night Football, because this Thursday Night Football game could be wild. You got Easton Stick starting, Aiden O'Connell. I mean, my goodness, anything could happen, but here's what I really believe to happen. Keenan Allen going more than 64.5 yards receiving. Hunter Renfrow having a terrible season, picking less on his projected receiving yards at 27.5. And Easton Stick, the starting quarterback for the Chargers. Unfortunate the way Justin Herbert's season comes to an end on the injured reserve with that index finger surgery. But the point being, I'm picking more. I believe in the kid, Easton Stick, and that's where the fun begins. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS for a deposit match of up to $100. Once again, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS for a deposit match up to $100. We love you and we care about you, so we're going to put that link right in the chat. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. All right, as we were taking the air today, we said we got a lot of free agent centers out there that the Dolphins can start to consider. And like I said, Matt Skura has been signed to the practice squad. So I'll just go ahead and pat myself on the back. Me and Chris Grier were on the same page there. Ben Jones, another guy that jumps out at you, as he was recently a Pro Bowler in 2022. But the point being, when guys go down on the offensive line, it's important to replace them to keep that cohesiveness going on the offensive line, which has been a huge product of the Dolphins' offensive line success. So, just like what happened today when breaking news happens, we've got you covered on Dolphins Today. That is why you subscribe. Our channel continues to grow, which has been a lot of fun, and our goal to reach every single Dolphins fan out there. That's why you subscribe. Daily Dolphins content, breaking news coverage, and of course, our live shows and our live watch parties. It's always a good time. All right, I won't sing, but you get the idea. Subscribe to the channel. Now, I identified 3 top targets for the Dolphins of that list from the free agent centers. Now, obviously, 2 of those signings have already been made, but as we've seen with this season, anything can happen as it relates to injuries. So let's just keep these names in mind, keep them in the back burner, starting with Ben Jones, who is a free agent formerly with the Tennessee Titans. He was a 4th-round pick by Houston in 2012. Played 4 seasons in Houston and 7 with Tennessee. So obviously very experienced with 11 seasons in total. That's why we ask if there's any gas left in the tank. But Pro Bowler in 2022. That wasn't that long ago, am I right? So if you've got a Pro Bowler that's proven to be able to do it just 1 season ago, I think it's a guy that might be worth taking a flyer on and seeing if he can help your team. Now, other targets that the Dolphins can continue to pursue. Chase Roullier, who last played for the Washington Commanders, he announced his retirement before the 2023 season, and that was a little bit surprising because you see on the screen there just 6 years in the NFL, but his final 2 seasons is when injuries really started to plague his productivity, playing in just 24 games in those final 2 seasons. But overall, you take the amount of snaps he's had, more than 4,000 compared to the amount of sacks he's given up. Only 5 in that amount of time. Really impressive stuff there. So as I said at the beginning of the video, lots of different ways to evaluate offensive line play. But Chase Roullier, a guy that I really believe could help the Dolphins down the road if they continue to need depth at the offensive line position. Now, last but certainly not least of my free agent offensive line targets, I like Rodney Hudson because he's another guy that's proven to be able to get it done at the offensive line position at the highest level. He's just unfortunately been plagued by injuries as well. Only played 16 games in his final 2 seasons after being acquired by Arizona in 2021. But 3 times he was named to the Pro Bowl and All-Pro in 2019. So yes, Pro Bowls are impressive, but those All-Pros, that means you're the best of the best. And Rodney Harrison was named an All-Pro in 2019. So again, not too long ago, capable of getting it done. Yes, if only the body could continue to keep up with the ebbs and flows and the battle that is playing in the National Football League. But he's had a lot of time off. Obviously hasn't played at all this season, retiring before the season began. So I know the Dolphins have signed a center, but should the Dolphins sign another one just to continue to add to the depth of the offensive line? We've seen how many injuries there have been this year. Type Y for yes or N for no. I don't think it's a bad idea to continue to add depth to the offensive line, continue to make sure you're prepared for the unfortunate scenarios that may arise down the home stretch here as the dog days of the NFL season continue to yield more and more injuries. The Dolphins are not the only team fighting their own injury bugs. You kind of see, it's almost like you see it every day. This player's out, and so on and so forth. It's a violent game. There's injuries are going to happen, and so it's important to get out in front of it, which is exactly what the Dolphins did by signing Jonotthan Harrison. So show some love to Jonnottan Harrison, the newest member of the Miami Dolphins. Let us know how you're feeling about that signing. And don't forget about Matt Skura as well, signed to the practice squad. So Harrison on the active roster, Skura on the practice squad. And when Dolphins news breaks, we've got you covered. That is why you subscribe. So do it so. Subscribe to Dolphins today, and we will welcome you with open arms.